What is up, guys? In today's video, we are talking about one of the most active stretches of severe weather we are seeing in potentially months. One of the main things we were talking about is this big time moderate risk of severe storms that we do have in effect already that's going to exist from now into the evening hours, as this dangerous moderate risk of severe storms is in effect across portions of Illinois, getting to the Chicago metro. That red area is a 4 out of 5 risk for severe storms, extremely dangerous volatile risk. Now there's a lot of uncertainties, but you still need to be weather aware even if you are in the yellow, orange, and red areas today. Now these are the probabilities that we do have today. It's kind of hard to see, but the first black area is a significant risk for tornadoes, and then that double black area is a double sig. See the sig 2 in the bottom part of the screen right there? That means we can see EF3 plus tornadoes in that double hatched area. So anywhere in that red and double hatched area that I have my cursor on could see potentially violent tornadoes as a ceiling potentially today, because of how dangerous this could be, even though there is uncertainty. So make sure you do have a plan and be prepared if you are in these regions, as this could be a very dangerous severe weather day, especially for Chicago regions. And the wind outlook is extremely dangerous too. We actually, anywhere in that SIG area, in the black, could see potentially wind gusts above 75 miles an hour, and in that pink and purple areas there inside of it have a 60% chance of seeing wind damage within 25 miles of a point. So big time wind damage threat once the QLCS squall line comes through, as this is going to be a big damaging wind and tornado day. So have a plan and be prepared. Now, today's threat is definitely very uncertain just because we have very low lapse rates. The tornado threat overall, the significant tornado parameters and the low-level jet are going to be very, very strong, which is going to mean if we get any organized storms, they could become big-time, dangerous, strong, long-track tornado producers. And just the issue is we don't know if they're going to organize because those low-level lapse rates that are very low mean that basically these storms might not be able to organize very much, and they'll stay very messy and unorganized, basically similar to what we see in Dixie Alley when you see those messy rain Dixie Alley events that always don't really perform how they were supposed to. And that could happen today, but the ceiling is so high that if a storm organizes, it could become a big-time tornado producer. That's why you do need to really be watching out in these areas, especially between the border of Iowa, Missouri, and Illinois. And we will see these supercells start to develop here from 4 to 5 p.m., 6 p.m., 7 p.m., especially across these areas just south of the line, where we could see some big-time tornado potential around the Peoria area. If we get those supercells that develop and really strengthen and become big-time tornado producers before this thing congeals into a line. And once it congeals into a line, it won't be that big-time dangerous tornado producer, but it will be more of that QLCS tornado and very damaging wind threat. And I do think that's what we're going to see in Chicago, not really the supercells in Chicago, because the supercells looking like they're going to develop in here in about a few hours and then kind of track until they congeal into the actual line of storms. Once it makes it to Chicago, it's probably going to be congealed into a line of storms, and we could see QLCS spin up tornadoes. So the tornado threat could still be dangerous, as the parameters are pretty unstable in Chicago. But the damaging wind threat is going to be the highest there across these regions, as if we look at the HRR, it shows 60 to 70 miles an hour wind gusts moving through from Missouri all the way up through Illinois. We could see some very, very strong wind gusts from this, as we do see some very severe storms roll through. Now the area, the mode south, could be a little bit of wind and hail, not as much tornadoes, isolated tornadoes possible, but closer to St. Louis we could see some strong straight line damaging wind gusts from this would be the main threat, just depending if those lapse rates can perform and if storms can organize enough, but still slightly uncertain there too. So basically overall threat, some uncertainties, but could be a very volatile and one of the biggest days of the year if it performs correctly. So have a plan and be prepared from the afternoon to evening hours. Now, if you look on the top right of my screen, we also have a slight risk of severe storms in effect today from Pennsylvania into New York City areas, Philadelphia, all under the severe weather threat. Baltimore, Washington, D.C., portions of West Virginia areas are all under the severe weather threat for a slight risk of severe storms. And this is going to be a typical northeast severe weather threat. Nothing hail or tornadoes, just a damaging wind threat. As we do have a little bit of 30% chance of damaging winds there, in an isolated damaging wind threat that we could have in these areas. So if you're on those areas in the yellow and red areas, we're not going to see extremely damaging winds, as it's not SIG, but you could definitely see some winds and have a plan and be prepared. Now, the storms that we get in the northeast are going to be the strongest over areas in central Pennsylvania, as we do have these showers here. And these showers they don't look extremely strong on picture, but they will be producing some fairly strong wind gusts with them on the HRRR model run as they move through Pennsylvania. Then they're going to slowly weaken by the time they make it to New York City regions. They might still stay on once they make it to New York City. We will see about that. But the highest wind gusts are definitely going to be here in this region of central Pennsylvania areas into New York City and Philadelphia areas and State College regions into the afternoon and evening hours today. Now, this was the best angle I could get of this, but tomorrow, severe weather risk on day 2 is another slight risk of severe storms that extends all the way from Tennessee all the way up to the border of Canada and New York and Vermont areas, where we could see dangerous severe weather threats all the way from Charlotte, North Carolina, through New York City areas, through Baltimore, Richmond, Virginia, Virginia Beach. All these areas could be under the gun into the Appalachians and the Northeast and Mid-Atlantic for severe weather threat in these yellow areas. So if you're on those yellow areas, make sure you do have a plan and be prepared. And this is going to be like a typical Northeast severe weather threat, where the tornado threat is 0. No tornado threat at all, but the wind risk is the main threat. Maybe an isolated instance of hail near Tennessee and the Appalachians of Tennessee and Virginia and West Virginia. But the main threat is going to be the wind damage risk. If you are in these yellow and red areas, you could see some strong winds up to 70 miles an hour, especially in this red area. From Washington, D.C. all the way up to New York City is where we could see some big time 30% chance of damaging winds within 25 miles of point. So if you're on those yellow and especially red areas, make sure you have a plan and be prepared tomorrow. A strong wind gust could definitely cause some problems. Now, the HRRR model is showing a ton of storms all the way from Kentucky all the way up to upstate New York areas tomorrow on Friday, where we could see many clusters of storms, bringing the risk for strong, damaging winds across many of these areas. Now, if this does congeal into a line of storms, then we could see some very damaging, significant winds into the Delmarva area. But this is definitely showing clusters of storms that could bring some big-time damaging wind gusts. If we look at the RRFS model, it does definitely show those severe storms, not actually as much as the HRRR shows, but I would definitely trust the HRRR a little more. And they both just show clusters of storms bringing that severe weather potential, but a little bit more scattered for the severe weather potential tomorrow, which is why there's only a slight risk in effect. But definitely some big-time damaging storms tomorrow in the Northeast, especially around the afternoon hours. Now, on Saturday, we do have a day 3 slight risk of severe storms in effect across Missouri, Illinois, into Kansas and northern Oklahoma regions, impacting cities like Wichita, Kansas City, and St. Louis, Missouri regions that are under the gun for severe weather on Saturday. And this is looking like this could be a big time. We're not fully certain on the hazards yet. There could be tornadoes and hail, but this is looking like the potential for a big-time damaging wind event, potentially a big-time squall line that could push south across these areas. We're not fully certain on that, but we will be watching out for that real potential. If we look at the NAM 3 kilometer for Saturday, it's showing multiple clusters of storms that do develop across these areas and bring the threat for hail and damaging winds. But if you look at the RFS, it has a completely different scenario than what you would see with clusters, and it has a big squall line that develops in track south threat, and this would be an evening to nocturnal threat where you could see QLCS spin up tornadoes and a big time damaging wind threat, as it has extreme damaging winds impacting Kansas City and St. Louis areas on Saturday. That would be a big time scenario that would definitely prompt an enhanced risk across these areas, but we're not fully certain on that. It's just the RFS. It's not the best model ever, but it's definitely something we've got to watch. Now, the last severe weather risk that we do have to watch out for is the severe weather threat that we do have in the Northeast again on Sunday, including New York City, Washington, D.C., portions of Pennsylvania, Jersey, upstate New York, Virginia areas, West Virginia, Maryland areas, all under the gun for severe weather. If you are in those yellow areas, make sure you do have a plan and be prepared on Sunday, as we could see some big time severe weather threat. We don't know exact scenarios. We're still 4 days out, so we don't know the exact threat from this severe weather scenario. But what we do know is this could definitely be the biggest day of all the days for severe weather in the Northeast, as the parameters look like they will be coming together to bring the biggest severe weather threat for the Northeast compared to all the other days. Alrighty, hope you guys did enjoy today's video. There's been a lot, and I mean a lot, of severe weather over the next few days. Definitely a pretty active weather pattern that we are having. But besides that, not too much other stuff. It is early June, so we will start getting into that hurricane season stuff. Not yet, but in the next few months or so, that is definitely going to increase, and we'll start posting that a lot more on the channel. But for now, this is definitely a big resurgence of severe weather after the really dry and mid-May that we've had. Mid-May, that kind of sounds similar, but yeah.